to Build Series Sydney. I'm Kate Peck, and on our very comfortable leather lounge today, we have Aussie actor and freshly baked novelist, Luke Arnold.
G'day. Hello.
Woohoo! Mate, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Right.
It's exciting to be here.
This is what I want to talk about. Yeah. How cool. This is your first book.
Yeah, that is like, I've only had like this real one in my hands for about a week. This is an advanced copy of my book coming out Feb next year. And it's all pretty exciting.
Last Smile in Sunderland. Right, okay. So talk me through what it's about. I know it's dark, magic, the main characters, he's a bit of a loose cannon, likes a bit of booze.
Yes. So it's pretty much, it kind of follows a similar vibe to some of those like old, like 40s, 50s detective stories. Raymond Chandler was kind of a big influence on me. My dad was really into his books. I read them as a kid and kind of, I think it was one of the things that influenced both even as an actor and in cinema, what I liked was that kind of film noir, the Humphrey Bogart films. So I've always had an interest in that film noir side of things and detective stories. And then a couple of years ago, started playing with the idea of finding a fantasy world with that kind of feeling. So it's a world where there was magic, and wizards and elves and kind of those typical fantasy creatures. And then a few years before the story starts, the magic died. And Fetch Phillips, who's our lead character, had some part in the conflict that caused the magic to die. So now he works on the streets of Sunder City as like a man for hire, trying to pay his way back for the mistakes he's made. And then rumors start coming through that the magic could come back.
Now, I saw briefly in here for Dad, who gave me Tolkien, Chandler, and many other kinds of magic. Was Tolkien a big deal for you when you were a little dude?
I have to say yes and no. It's interesting with that Dad did introduce me to Tolkien. We never, I remember him reading it to me, it was one of the first books he really sat down and went, I think you'll be into this, let's read it. We never quite got through it together, but so we read probably, it was probably over a couple of weeks of him reading the beginning. And it's a big, they're big books, so we never got through it together. But definitely that was the kind of first proper fantasy book, as most people that I read, beginning with him. And then I think for fantasy, for me, now I'm reading a lot of fantasy because I'm a fantasy novelist, so I've got to know what's out there. But it really, for me, I play a lot of video games and, watch a lot of anime. So it did start with Tolkien, but then I branched out from there and, kind of found all the different fantasy worlds out there in different mediums.
And the process of writing a book, it must be so different to, say, script writing as well. Yeah. What is the process? How long is it in the making? How many people did you have to force to read it?
That is a big part because it's both for yourself going back over. If you can write a script and that takes a long time, but then you can read it in 45 minutes. You can go back through and get a sense of what's there. Even for myself, when I've finished a draft and have to go back over it, that's days just to know what I've done myself. Then when you're asking other people to read it, that's a huge ask. Yeah. And so I was really lucky that I wrote a shorter version of this book first and kind of gave that, that was maybe easier for other people to digest and see what they thought. Some lovely people read that and came back to me and said they really liked it. And that kind of gave me that bit of positive feedback I needed to dive into the bigger version. And then it means it all takes time as well. I've written the second one now and I'm waiting for the publisher to get back with notes on that. Because it's a series,
the Sunder City series.
This will hopefully be the beginning, like those old detective stories. Each book will be its own little self-contained mystery with an overarching, more epic fantasy story buried underneath, but immediately you want it to feel like a series of detective stories to begin with. But each one, it takes a long time to do. I began the main version though, kind of really lucky that after finishing Black Sails, a show that I worked on for a few years, it was nice at the end of that. I was quite satisfied my desires as an actor had kind of been sated for the moment. I was quite happy with, I'd really enjoyed that show and really proud of it. So, and, had some money in the bank. So I pretty much could lock myself away for about 3 months and did the first draft in that time. And then it is a year of handing it out to people, getting some feedback, spending the time to rewrite it. And it took about a year before then I had the Orbit, the publishers in the UK, come on board.
Wow. So, I mean, is it quite hard to publish a book? And it's not an ebook. It's real. Like, it's a hard copy. I feel like people do ebooks these days, but it's really an accomplishment to have a hard copy book out there.
Look, I'm really lucky. So it began with Orbit in the UK, and by the time they came on board with an offer, they brought on Orbit in the US, as well as Hachette here in Australia.
Ching.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And hopefully now we've sold it to, we've got the German translation rights and Brazil. Like, I've got the Portuguese translation rights there. So it's all really exciting, but this is all new for me. Like, would you say it's hard to publish a book? Absolutely. And I'm learning every step of the way at the moment. I'm learning what it takes. So tomorrow I'm kind of going around with the people from the publishers here in Australia, and we go to the bookstores and meet the people buying it there, and help charm them into putting in big orders to put this on the stores. So it's a really long process, since it is a physical thing out in the world, of working out how to get them into people's hands.
Oh, it's very cool. You must be quite proud.
I am. It's definitely feeling quite proud and excited, and also quite daunted each step of the way. Like, now that it's out there in the world, people that I haven't met and don't, love me unconditionally, like my family and some old friends, are reading it and will be giving their feedback. So, but in some ways it is, even though my face is on the back of the book, there's a nice separation with this compared to what I've done as an actor, where it does feel like this other thing that I've worked on and now put out into the world, and can somewhat step back from, as opposed to, something that I've acted in which case, my face is always staring back at me.
Have you read reviews about it? I mean, is it hard to take?
I haven't really yet, because this is only just going in the first people's hands this week around there. So
wow,
there haven't been
really
any
fresh.
yet. So this is all exciting stuff coming for me in the weeks to come.
Oh, good. Well, I'll make sure to give you a thorough review.
Yeah, I'm looking
yes,
forward to
very
it.
critical.
Yeah.
Glitch. Now you've just finished season 3.
Yeah. So I came into Glitch season 2, which was really great, and season 3 is airing now Sunday nights, ABC 9:30, I believe, and then on iView, and soon be on Netflix.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's just it was one of the reasons. Glitch was one of those shows, because I was working overseas a bit and been traveling around, and it was just one of those shows where everyone on it's so lovely and the scripts are so great and everyone cares so much that working on that was really one of the things that made me want to come back and work back in Australia a lot more, because it's just a great experience, and it's different to what it's like on set anywhere else. So it's really exciting that that the third season's coming out. I haven't watched any of it yet, so I'm excited to catch up, because there's so many just great actors doing brilliant work in it.
Any good stories that you can remember of being on set? Or perhaps you said that filming on set in London is very different. I mean, any good stories from over there?
Yeah, it's all right. General good stories. I think I think it was interesting. I know Emma Booth put up on her Instagram. I seem to go through a real period of acting in things with no clothes on, and Glitch was kind of no exception. That it kind of was rocking up on different shows and pretty much wearing what is professionally known as a cock sock. Seemed to be my outfit in most things I was doing. And I know Emma Booth did put up on her Instagram at one point a little time lapse of us blocking out our first sex scene on there, which was pretty much our first day of rehearsals. It's like, come in and go, try it this way, try it that way. Is that good? Should I do this? So I've had a number of, Glitch was one in a long line of roles where I pretty much had to get new. Another one was a film called Half Magic that I did with Heather Graham, which was great because she wrote and directed that and cast me in a role that mostly involved me being naked with her. And so that was a whole new experience of doing those kind of intimate scenes with the director. So we'd kind of we'd do the scene, and then they'd bring us out the monitor, and we'd kind of still be sitting on the bed, put a blanket over us and watch the scene back and go like, oh, okay, that's good. Or maybe I could put my hand here. That looks all right. Whoa. Okay, and do another take from there. So, I think I got to maybe do some roles now where I get to keep my clothes on. But it's just for something different. But for some reason, yes, I can pretty much put a show reel together of my
Nudity.
ass now.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
And what was Heather Graham like?
Exactly how you would want her to be in real life.
Awesome.
Just as bubbly and beautiful and just so lovely and really switched on. She's been working in, her whole life. She's been, working in the industry on all different kinds of, of stuff. And this was her directorial debut, and she was just like the kindest, loveliest, most fun director to work with. So she brought some great talent on. I think because she's so lovely, it's the kind of thing where everyone wanted to make the film as great as they could. So it was just a beautiful set to be on.
And you had a sex scene with her. Was that quite when they told you that? What did you kind of think immediately?
Yeah, there was a bit of an idea of one of the most beautiful women in the world, and somewhat, when you're told that, and I guess it was her that told me, like we had a Skype, sent in a tape, and she Skyped and said, "Hey, no, I think I'm going to cast you in this." It doesn't quite. It's a very absurd thing that doesn't quite make sense. That yes, one of the most beautiful women in the world would, jumps on Skype and says, "Hey, I'm going to cast you in a movie where, we're going to roll around naked together." It's a very strange thing that I guess is one of the weird things that happens in this industry. Yeah.
That's really weird. I can imagine that's probably not the only weird thing that you would have come across.
Well, no, it is. It is very strange what we do, and it is one of those industries where, you can be a jobbing actor for a while, and there's plenty. It's a real privilege to work in the industry, but then there are certain jobs that come along where you really get to throw yourself into it completely. And when you're surrounded by people who really care and are always working, the egos get put aside, and they're really working on how to wring every bit of juice out of the material and to make every bit as good as they can. And I've been really lucky that I feel like I've had a real string of those kind of jobs. I've had, had a few of the others where it's a job, and you do it, and it's still a nice job to have, but it both everything from kind of Never Tear Us Apart to Black Sails to even just doing my first theatre in a long time, just finished Shakespeare in Love with Melbourne Theatre Company, and it was just one of those times again when everyone in the room is really brilliant and committed and hardworking, and when you have those environments, that's when real magical stuff happens, and when you realize why you can put up with the rejection and the lack of security and the uncertainty and the vulnerability and all the things that come with choosing this career.
And do you remember when you were handed that first script where you thought, oh, this is really magic and I reckon this is going to really do something for me and my career?
Oh, yes, and I also think I've done my best to think of things in the opposite way. If I do get a script, I try and focus more on what I can bring to it that might be different to what anyone else can, as opposed to what I can get out of it. And I do think that's something that, especially having spent some time in LA, I see a lot of actors fall into the trap of, where and sometimes you can be on a job that you feel like this could have the potential to be great if we all focus on it and really work hard, but you listen to what everyone's talking about, and it is, oh, do you think this will go to this festival? Do you think this will be good? I wonder if this will do well. And their minds are already past the job into what it could do for them, as opposed to what can we do right now to make this better? Like, are we, you hope you're working with great material, but are there things that you can change, that you can lift up, or that you can dig out of there that maybe if you put a bit more of your focus on it, you can improve what's happening. And I think the first one where I really felt, the first time I really had the opportunity to do that, I think, was a film called Broken Hill. And it was I was doing some, a co-op down in Melbourne, first year out of drama school, like end of my first year out of drama school, and got an audition for a film that had the producers of Napoleon Dynamite and this American director called Dag and Merrill. And it was a, few $1 million film that about a composer, like a kind of a high school kid who wanted to be a composer, and the director wanted to tell the story of an artist who had kind of potential and drive, but was somewhere in the world where he didn't have access to the things he needed to make it happen. So he thought, well, the Australian outback could be a great, like that sounds like a pretty remote place for someone who wants to be a composer. So it's about this kid called Tommy who puts together a prison band as a way of bringing his music into the world. And it was just one of those things where I clicked with the director and felt like there was, that I could bring something to this that no one else quite would. Whatever that was, I connected with something in there, and we connected in a way where it just it felt so much easier than maybe the other jobs I've been trying to get or had been doing in that first year out. To the point where most of the direction came down to Dagan either saying like a little bit more Luke or a little bit more Tommy. And we kind of had a scale of what that meant, and otherwise we both understood who the character was and what we were doing. And that gave me my first litmus test of when I felt like there was just some feeling in that I've become familiar with, and I maybe see in other jobs where you go, this is the kind of thing where I can really let myself maybe lift and add to what's happening here.
It looked pretty loose. From what I've seen.
Yeah, right.
It's a pretty wild storyline, Broken Hill.
Yeah, no, it was. It's like that like fun little family drama, but it also just had enough kind of weirdness and other things in it that, that we got to try some other stuff. And also that's where I really understood what you can do as the lead in a film, where you have a relationship as opposed to theatre where you do in the rehearsal room, you work with people in every department, but then as you kind of get into the show, it's mostly you and a bunch of actors backstage, with all the beautiful people in stage management and everyone else there, but you kind of get left alone with the actors, and then it's you and the audience. Where every day in film and TV, but especially if you're lead in a film, you have this relationship with everyone in every department, and you can build things together and add little moments of what you were the props person, how you decide to use that in a certain, use certain things in a certain scene, or, and then every camera operator can, sometimes you start getting that relationship where they start going, well, maybe if you step over here and do this, and you get to create these little shots together. And I think that amount of creativity and that collaboration that I experienced on that film definitely was one of the things that made me go, okay, no, I think this career is something where I'll keep working at it, because when you get those jobs and those moments, it's worth it.
And In Excess. Yeah. I mean, wow, it probably seems like a lifetime ago now, because that was about 2014, I think.
Yeah, it's hard. It's almost getting to the point where it's hard for me to relate to the person who did that, because it seems so absurd that I got to do that role. Like, it still seems like a thing I would dream about doing. Yeah, in high school, I made a joke saying I want to play him one day. And obviously when I had the long hair, that people would sometimes... I sometimes met people who knew Michael who said that I reminded them of him. And just having some essence. It got brought up a few times, so I thought when they were casting that, I thought, well, it's my role to lose. I should at least be in with a shot. And I sent them tapes and tapes before they were even casting. Once I heard it was happening, I just went, I just recreated some interviews that I, watched YouTube and put some things together. So yeah, it was just a dream role, and I actually got it, which is absurd. And then it was another one of those things where everyone knew it was such a responsibility to have, like, to be a part of telling that story, that everyone just worked so hard and put so much of their heart into it. And even though there was pressure, sometimes the pressure of doing something like that can stress everyone out, and everyone can get a bit too serious and a bit too precious, but somehow it was still just the most fun show to be a part of, which owes a lot to Dana Reed, who brought us all together and managed, steered that ship, and gave me, enough freedom, but also enough, direction to get through it all. But it was super special.
I mean, so singing and sex scenes, those two would probably be the most terrifying things I would imagine for anybody really having to do that on camera. Do you relate to that, or were you just straight in?
Look, the sex scenes, nothing compared to the singing as far as nervousness. I am not much of a singer. Luckily for that, no one was going to tune in to hear me sing, first of all. And, it was very much about hearing those songs and hearing those hits. And if I could sing like Michael Hutchence, I'd probably be on tour right now. I I dream to be able to sing like that. So I can work my way through, and I did, like, in some of the rehearsal scenes and in moments I was, you do hear me singing in the show, but it was a lot of miming because I cannot sing like Michael Hutchence. I wish I could, but
There was only one, I guess.
that's absolutely no. If I and because one of the great joys of that show as well is that everyone went out and bought the albums afterwards, and that music was really introduced to a whole new generation, as well as reintroduced to people who might have forgotten just how many hits they had and how good the music was and how timeless a lot of it is. So it would have been a real disappointment if I'd done much more singing and just and done anything to destroy that legacy. So for me, I would much rather have to get naked than have to sing in public. Really.
Yeah, fair enough. Well,
Yeah.
that I would probably agree with that. And
Yeah.
playing a role of somebody who does end up passing away, was there any downsides to that?
Yeah, it's really well, especially the way he died and the kind of not only the in one side of things the mystery around it, but then also the amount of unfinished business. I think the unexpected nature of it meant that a lot of people are still carrying around lots of feelings that just a lack of closure, and that's both people who knew him. So because the band were involved in the show, that was a real thing that was really there every day, a real potency of going, okay, we're going back to their memories, and I'm stepping into the shoes of someone that they love dearly and who isn't around anymore. You can't overstate the responsibility and just how serious that is really to do. But then also that feeling in certain degrees permeates through so many people. And since doing the show, I still go around and people want to tell me their Michael stories. And it was either the time that I got invited backstage to a gig or saw him at this pub one day or met him at, through some friends. And he was just one of those guys that affected so many people and touched so many people that his death affected lots of us. And most of us remember where we were when we heard. So both while doing it and afterwards, it's been a real, humbling experience, and also something that I don't know if I've completely worked out how to deal with in that situation, how to that I'm now, in a small way, I've stepped into his story for a little bit, but I played a version of Michael that fit into that story we were telling, and, I never met him myself, but I through the job got to meet lots of people who knew him and loved him. So that's a long rambling, way of saying.
Do you still get people coming up to you
absolutely.
all the time?
Yeah.
Telling you their Michael story. That's really hectic.
Yeah.
It'll follow you for a long time then.
Absolutely. And it's, and I'm an actor, and I did my best in that role for that little bit of a moment I had stepping into that story. But I guess it's just, I don't know exactly what to do with it. With all of those stories, except it's kind of nice to listen to, but also, it's when you hear about someone like that who everyone he talked to felt like they were the only person in the room, and he kind of just someone who went out into the world with a lot of love and made everyone he was with feel really special. And I think, if people come up to me and remind me, what that means to people, and he's kind of still someone to look up to. And I think one of the nice things was there were two parts to that show where really that first episode is boys from Australia take on the world and win. And then in the episode, we see the cost of that. But in the first, there was a lot of times it was really just celebrating the band and what they did and their friendship. So even though there was that element of darkness in the story, we got to spend a lot of time just having a lot of fun and, pretending to be rock stars, which is always great.
Not a bad way to go, right? Yeah. Throw any televisions at any windows or anything? No?
I didn't get quite that far, but we did definitely, it was another great cast to work with, and when people start treating you like a rock star during the day, when I did have to go back and go to Black Sails again for season 2 after doing it, and I I think I strutted back into Cape Town and, a lot was flicking my hair a lot and had to kind
King
of be
Arnold,
knocked back
I'm
down
back.
a few pegs. I go like, okay, you're not a rock star anymore.
Calm the farm. Okay, we
Yeah.
got some questions here for you, Luke.
Okay.
All right, Elizabeth. Were you an NXS fan before you booked the role, and how did you embody Michael in your performance? What preparation was needed?
Absolutely, I was an INXS fan before. Had a bunch of their, I think when I first got my car, there were definitely INXS CDs, kicking around there on getting regular play. And I wish I'd had more time to prepare. You dream of when you get these kind of roles that you're going to have months of preparation. But I finished Black Sail Season 1 and I had 2 weeks before we started pre-production, which was then only another 2 weeks in Melbourne. So I came back to Melbourne. I rented a place in Elwood, actually, and locked myself away. I barely left the house for the first week and First, I listened to watched every interview I could find, listened to all the radio interviews. I wrote out the lyrics to every song, listened to all the music, and just started, because there's a thing, the freedom with which Michael moved and the way he carried himself, it's kind of so unself-conscious. And I knew that I needed to rock up day one of rehearsals with that feeling. So I needed to spend those 2 weeks really just getting in myself, not feeling like it was a performance. So that involved a week on my own of kind of dancing around the house and preparing, and then kind of slowly entering the world, just letting myself be a little bit more flamboyant, carrying myself in a way that I usually wouldn't, and kind of... And then kind of had friends come round and we'd just go, hey, can you come round tonight and kind of pop some champagne and put some music on and just drag them into my little, method acting experiment. Not that I rocked up as Michael on day one or ever took it that far, but just if I didn't pull this off, it wasn't going to. Which is something on first day of rehearsals, Dana Reed said to me, she's like, I'm here for you, but if you don't do this, we don't have a show. Which is it was a nice amount of support, but going like, okay, you got to do this. And so it really was at least carrying myself in a way from day one that everyone who rocked up on this thing, knowing it was a little risky, would hopefully look at me and go, oh, I think we might be all right. So yeah.
Did you have a movement coach?
No, I did not. But
Still
Dana
DIY.
came from a dance background. So she, definitely when we were doing our band rehearsals and practicing stuff, because we also had to... we were cutting in most of the live performances we'd cut between archive footage and what we'd film. So it wasn't just about embodying and having fun. I had to watch all those concerts and kind of map out going, okay, on this line, put the microphone in the left hand, spin around, then you got to get over to Tim on the guitar here for that line. And so I kind of had to choreograph all that. So then Dana was great in coming in and just, with movement stuff, helping me, and, she was around during that period and did a lot of 80s dancing apparently. So she could just give me a few tips on, getting the period movements right.
She was well versed.
Yeah.
Fred, and this is Black Sails. What did you love the most about being a pirate? And are you a great sailor now?
Well, first of all, not a great sailor. We did in preparation one time take a 3-mast sailing ship out, and we kind of took all the modern rigging off and experienced doing that. Like took it out in Cape Town, out into the wind and on the waves, and that was nice to know because once we started doing the show, we were never actually on the water. It was all on the back lot, all surrounded by green screens. So it'd be this kind of thing. We had a few different, pools that some of the ships were in, but generally it was green screens that would, like on cranes. So if we decided the camera's going to move over here, or the green screen would fall in behind us, and the greatest visual effects guys in the world would then make the ocean for us later on. So I actually really, and then had all the ideas, hey, on the weekend, going to rent a little boat and we'll get better at it. But after being on fake ships all week, the last thing any of us wanted to do was get on another boat of any kind on the weekend. So I'm not a great sailor, but the most fun thing I think was just being around other pirates. Like they cast a bunch of pirates in, we were all kind of nomadic, kind of, hard partying, loud, raucous people that they brought together from around the world. And also it's like, when you play Michael Hutchence, people kind of treat you a little bit like a rock star. When you're cast as a pirate, people love to treat you like a pirate. And everywhere we went as a group, people would be like, oh no, the pirates are here. When you kind of end up fulfilling that role a little bit. So, or everybody, if I go into a bar and someone behind there's watched Black Sails, there's usually shots of rum coming pretty quick. So, yeah, the free rum's another good thing about being a pirate.
You didn't go and get a parrot afterwards or anything? No?
I was thinking, I thought, I had an idea in my mind that if we got to the point in the show where he gets a parrot, that I would just get my own parrot and train it and, just use my pet parrot in the show, but we never got to that point. Yeah.
So good. And from Stacey, you were missing a leg in Black Sails. Mm-hmm. What does that involve in props, and how do you keep your body from being lopsided over the years of filming?
It was a real thing. So in season 3, I have a peg leg, and then in season 4, I lose the peg leg and I hop around on a crutch. So season 3, we started by doing a thing where I tucked my leg back with a green sock on and had the peg leg coming out. So I was kind of always, it was always kind of sticking out there, and I'd hop around on that. It ended up being better for visual effects. In the end, I just kind of kept my leg straight, and they painted out my foot and put this little metal foot on top afterwards. But then when I was missing the leg, there was no way around that. So leg was strapped back. I had a little carabiner thing, so I didn't have to keep it up there all day. I could kind of only put it up between action and cut, and then put it down and stretch it out. But still spending 16-hour shoot days with a lot of it with my leg tipped up, leaning on a crutch, hopping around on sand. My body went completely out of alignment. Production were really great, had lots of physio and did everything I could, but it's kind of like, our bodies are great at dealing with what we put them through. So when you hop around on one leg, body starts adjusting, going, okay, if that's what we're doing, we'll stretch this side and shrink that side, and then you go the other way. So lots of physio. But it's still a thing where even a couple of years afterwards, if I had a massage or something, they'd usually ask, oh, did you have an injury? And I was like, no, I pretended to lose a leg for a bit. And they're like, oh, that makes sense, because it's taken a while for things to get back to normal. Yeah.
Wow, that's so bizarre. Yeah. Do you still feel it now?
Not so much now. I think I've done enough other little things in between and, remembered to stretch out that it's not. No, I think I've finally moved out of it, but it was a while. Yeah.
Okay, cool. We've got one more question here. What has been the most exciting moment in your career thus far?
Ooh. I do think probably doing, as far as exciting, doing Never Tear Us Apart was just, a pinch me moments one after the other. And especially those days, we pretty much did all the big live performances over 2 days at Sydney My Music Bowl, where we'd kind of go like, okay, we're doing Wembley, and we do that for half a day. Then we go and they change the set to like, okay, it's 10 years earlier, and it's Michael's birthday in South America somewhere, wherever that concert was. And then we do that, and it was just like no audience there, but just doing concert after concert in that get-up with that music blaring and kind of jumping and miming along with all those guys. And it was kind of towards the end of the shoot, so we're all, kind of knew everyone, and we're all a big family. That was pretty amazing, really. Yeah, it was on a high for a long time after that. And then, which I think, and all the nervousness of that, to then actually seeing it and going, hey, this is actually good, because, you can put your heart and soul into a lot of things, and it doesn't always work out the way you hope. And I think the fact that I'm really proud of how the show turned out, and that everyone seemed, that most people seemed to really enjoy it and receive it well, was a huge relief, but then also really exciting to see the response to everyone after that.
Oh, I can imagine. It would have been quite terrifying to watch that, I think. Luke, thank you so much for chatting. Yeah. Make sure you go and pick up a copy of The Last Smile in Sunder City, because it's going to be a cracker, I'm presuming. And thanks for chatting. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. Cheers.